The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms.
Welcome, and here we are with the fabulous Wendy Rule on the Oracle of Luna. Welcome, Wendy.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited and thrilled that you are here with us today. And how are you doing?
Well, good. Yeah, busy. As I was talking to you just before we began recording, I'm in the process of moving house. So I guess I'm kind of on a threshold, which is a very magical time because it's this in-between time. And we know as, magical workers that those threshold times generate a lot of energy. So I feel like I'm not quite in this house and not quite in our new house. And it's exciting and slightly daunting, but mostly exciting.
Yeah, it's a crossroads time almost, right?
Yeah, for sure. It really is. And I think there's great power in these transitional times. So I'm doing a lot of ritual. I just finished a month-long online course that I was curating called Positive Magic. And I was very much, although I was facilitating, I was very much a participant as well. And so we, followed a whole lunar cycle from full moon to full moon, and lots of rituals, lots of meditating. And yeah, that really helped keep me grounded actually during this very big time of upheaval. So, ritual always does that, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I've been doing a lot of just really simple grounding rituals, and I just went through a big move myself. So I'm in transition as well.
Yeah.
And I know how that can be. But I try to align with the, as you know, the lunar cycles. And we just went through or are in the full moon phase. So lots of power and energy flowing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's like the surfer, just kind of ride that power, ride the wave.
Exactly. And I think that's, that's the big lesson with working magic, is just being as aligned with the flow of nature as we can be. I think that's the core part of magic, rather than trying to manipulate anything, just to be as aligned as we can and to be as aware as we can. And so, yeah, that recent Capricorn full moon was a good ally in getting things done. And now with the waning moon, it feels like a really good time to be clearing and shedding and packing in boxes.
Yeah, moving towards expansion.
Exactly.
So I know a lot of people on my show and my listeners are interested in knowing something about your background. How did it all get started, Wendy? What got you interested in singing, or did singing find you, or how did it all kind of start?
Well, I think I was just always a singer. As a little kid, I sang, but it wasn't until really I was 15 or so that I sang publicly, other than things just like school, plays and things like that when I was very little. But I always had this thing where I would just love to sing when I was by myself and when I was in nature. And I would make up little songs and I would sing to the fairies. And it's always been a very intuitive thing for me, like walking or breathing. It's just been part of me. And I didn't really equate it as something that was a career or was even had anything to do with other people. It was just what I did. And then I guess when I was about 15, I my two best friends at high school, we kind of dared each other to audition for the school musical, and we did, and I ended up getting the lead, and it was in a 1920s musical called The Boyfriend, and suddenly I just realised that, oh wow, other people like my singing too, and it feels quite nice to be applauded, and suddenly I was kind of hooked, and so then I became very dedicated, and I took singing lessons and really decided that's what I wanted to do with my life, and continued with musical theatre after high school, and but hadn't really found my path as a musician. I always felt like I was skirting around the edges, wasn't quite being my true authentic self. My real singing, to me, my favourite singing was still when I was by myself in nature, making up little songs, singing little tunes, singing myself into a trance.
Yeah.
And that was the core of it. But it hadn't all clicked for me, what I'm doing now. And I guess that changed when I've kind of always been connected with the esoteric realm, even though I didn't really know it was that. I was very connected to the world of the Fae when I was a small child, and could kind of astral travel very all the time, and had fairy friends and all that kind of thing. I was pretty trippy and a little weirdo, I think. And so that was very comfortable for me. Nature, fairyland, magic, and I was intrigued with things like crystals and things like that, but I didn't have any overarching kind of concept joining all those things together.
Right.
And then I guess I was 25 when I had my son, and I'm 54 now. And so around that time, I guess when I was pregnant with him, I'd always loved fairy tales, stories, folk tales, and mythology. And I knew mythology quite well. I studied literature at uni, and I knew all those, I knew the myths backwards, or the Greek myths at least. And then I became pregnant, and I realized that energy of the goddess that I'd always externalized as something other, or as something that was merely a story, suddenly came to life. And I felt really connected with these ancient goddesses. And that happened very blessedly to coincide with me discovering a little witchcraft store in Melbourne, where I grew up, Melbourne, Australia. And I kind of wandered into that witchcraft store with, then my son, who was a baby, and overheard people talking about witchcraft. I'm like, what is this? And the store was all kind of lovely and incensey and strange and a little bit spooky, kind of very, very Harry Potter, really.
Yeah.
And I overheard people talking about this, and I asked, what is this? And was directed to a book, and it was Marion Weinstein's Positive Magic, and which is a classic. And I read that and realized that all these things that I was kind of into, the unseen world, crystals, herbs, tarot, that they had a kind of, that there was like a keystone to it holding it all together, and that was witchcraft. And then it was like, wow, I found my path. And then I began writing songs. I began writing my first album, actually, and realized that this thing that I always loved, which was singing, could actually be my vehicle for expressing my spirituality. So the two just came together. It was amazing.
That's wonderful. That you synced up both your intuitive and your, intellectual side through your spiritual. And it's that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
It
It really was. And before I'd kind of tried lots of things. I'd done the musical theatre, and then I was a jazz singer for a long time. That's what kind of got me through college. I was doing,
Oh,
just little jazz clubs and
really?
yeah, and that was really good training. I do actually have a little jazz album out that I
Yeah.
recorded years ago. It's up on my Bandcamp page, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's yeah, I learned a lot from that. I learned stamina because the gigs were often 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned a lot of vocal technique, and I was still getting singing lessons at that point, private singing lessons. And I loved those songs, but it still wasn't what my heart wanted to do. Something still wasn't clicking. And then I tried like fronting a rock band and things like that, but still it wasn't right. So it was only when my spirituality was suddenly ignited by I think this union of having my kid, discovering witchcraft, and weaving together all those things that then became my first album. So yeah, it was an amazing time actually.
So powerful. What was the name of your first album?
It's called Zero, and it's called Zero because I was, I'd been writing poetry before then, but I hadn't really thought of, putting it to music. And I really didn't play an instrument either at that point. I was beginning to teach myself guitar, but I was pretty crappy at it, so all the songs were going on in my head. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I set myself a task in the writing of my first album that I'd write one song for each of the major arcana cards of the tarot. And so, Zero is both the Fool.
Yep.
Is card 0. And I did feel like that. I felt like I was stepping out on this magical journey that I had no idea where it would take me. And all I had was my trust and my instinct. And then 0 is also, in a way, the final card, the world card, which where there's the world dancer, if you know the tarot, and she's in like an oval egg-shaped 0 sort of circle. And so to me, 0 is beginning and end, and it's the universe, it's the cosmos. And so that's why it's called 0. And and then some of the songs that I wrote then ended up on my album. A lot of them got discarded, because I was just beginning. But a lot I still really love. And so there's songs like Chariot, and which is obvious. And there's a song called Child the First, which I wrote for my son Reuben when he was a baby. That was the first song I wrote, actually. And that references that's the magician card, and references the magician with his tools at the altar and all that kind of thing. And so
that's beautiful. I could see where your roots kind of began. Then it sounds like it's really began with that first album, and just kind of getting to know your spirituality through witchcraft. And that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So when did you start noticing that you were a witch? Like when you really knew that you were a witch?
I guess it was around that time, but also before then. I also magically am born on October 31st.
Oh,
and so
you are? Wow.
Yeah. but in Australia, back then, when I was a kid, no one was celebrating Halloween in Australia. It was just like not a thing. It was like,
really?
That's what Americans do. They celebrate Halloween. But I just intuitively knew that it was magical. Now I know that it's actually Beltane in Australia. But back then, I just naturally knew that this had to be celebrated. So I was taking my lead from the kind of American tradition of Halloween, and I would have little parties when I was like 12, and realize now, wow, they were my first little covens, really. We'd all dress up and we'd go trick-or-treating, and people would have no idea when we arrived at their door, like, what are you doing? Why are these children all dressed strangely?
What are you doing at my doorstep?
Exactly. So, there was something there where both I loved magic, and I was really part of my journey has always been bringing community together to celebrate the turning of the seasons and the cycles of the moon and all that kind of thing. So even back then, when I didn't really know that what I was doing was witchcraft, essentially, I was doing it. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I guess I knew intuitively that there was some connection, that I had the ability to kind of move through the veil very easily. I don't know why. I just could trance out very easily, and I had lots of precognitive dreams and things like that. There was just something there where the fairy world or the other world or whatever you'd like to think of it as was just a breath away, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when I was younger and you know, as a kid. And yeah, I was just fascinated with the realm of magic, fairy tale, the unseen realm. And but it wasn't really until I guess until that time, till my mid-20s, when I discovered witchcraft, that I thought, oh, this is what I've been doing all this time. This is this thing. And thank goodness there's other people like me, and I can go to gatherings and you know, it was not that witchcraft was in its infancy in Australia, because there was a whole generation of, you know, a couple of generations of witches before me, but it still wasn't very publicly known. Like there were famous witches like Rosaline Norton, and you know, in Sydney, she was like a 1950s visual artist and very avant-garde and out there as a witch. And so there was, you know, definitely it was a thing, but not particularly well organized. I guess, well, my son was born in 92. So then it was, you know, witchcraft at that point was all like The Craft and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And
like Hollywood
there's a lot of,
portrays.
exactly. And there was a lot of misconceptions about it. And also it was very, the media was really interested in it. And so once I got out there and began doing what I do on stage, you know, I'd just be doing like pub gigs, and my band at that point, I was very blessed to meet my best friend, Rachel Samuel, who plays cello. She had just come out from England, and we met through mutual friends and just clicked and began making music. And she's been, you know, my co-creator all these years. And
that's
so,
cool.
yeah, she's a really pivotal part of my music. And so we began, neither of us really knew what we were doing. She was classically trained. She had never written music before, and nor had I. And we were just like, let's see what happens. And so there was something very pure and intuitive about it. So my band at that point, my very first band, was myself and Rachel, and then a whole heap. It was like a rock band with all these boys on bass and guitars, and you know.
Yeah.
And then at one point, I went through a trauma. I had a miscarriage, and I had a. I think this was, yeah, it was after I had Reuben, and it was very traumatic, and I really went into a bit of a breakdown, and the guys in the band were really unsupportive. And at that point, Rachel, who's English, had gone back to England for a visit to her family. And while she was away, they tried to kick her out of the band, and my one ally. And so I contacted her and said, this is what's going on. And so we decided between us to actually kick all of them out. And she and I went off by ourselves, and we teamed up with another guy called Craig Patterson, who's just a really darling person, and he played keyboards. Rachel played cello, and I was just singing without playing guitar at that point. And the three of us, our three-piece band, we began touring and doing loads of shows. And I was up there on stage, actually like with a wand, casting circle, you know, just in pubs. And people were like, what is going on here? This is crazy. And the esoteric communities of Australia began to realize what I was doing, and they were really into it. And I guess too, the media began to take an interest. And there was one other kind of singing witch in Australia who's still a very dear friend of mine. Her name's Fiona Horn. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's terrific. And she was in a really happening rock band in the 90s called Def FX. And so she was there very we looked like opposites. I was all dark and moody and Scorpio and witchy, and she was just as overtly witchy, but blonde and gorgeous and very much more kind of, I guess, much more glamorous. And the media decided that they would pit us against each other as though we were rivals, which we never were. They made it up completely. So we began doing some shows together as well, and we're still friends now. So that was the early days of my band, and
that's it's so interesting how people are drawn to each other to collaborate, and it's magical, the power of it. And also, it sounds like the people that you collaborate with are sort of on the same path as you, or similar paths.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, who's been with me, all these years, and if you listen to any of my albums, her cello is just like another voice on it. It's just gorgeous. She was never been overtly pagan, and yet she's very appreciative of what I do and very respectful as well, and believes in magic. Just doesn't follow that path,
Sure. Yeah.
But which has kind of been good in a way too, because she's Capricorn, so she's kept my Scorpio emotional self very grounded during all of this. But a lot of the time I do collaborate with very like-minded people, or at least people who fully respect my spiritual path. I wouldn't bother if they didn't,
Yeah. Well, I know you've done a lot for communities, Wiccan and pagan communities, really honoring the seasons and the sabbats. And how did that start to evolve? Did you start getting invitations from different covens or communities?
Well, in Australia, those early days, like I say, witchcraft wasn't a huge thing in Melbourne in the 90s when I was starting out. It was still very underground. And so it was really only Fiona and I out there publicly going, hey, there's this thing going on. So, I'd still be doing community gatherings, but it really wasn't until I first came to America in 2001. And I was just very eager to see the world and explore. And, I'd been reading, it was the early days of the internet too.
Yeah.
So I just I realized that some people were listening to my music in America. I didn't quite understand how they'd found out about it, but they had. And they'd contacted me and said, if ever you're in the States, la-di-da. So one of those gigs actually was in Albuquerque. I think that's one of the big reasons I'm living in New Mexico now, is that I first came to my first tour of the States was I included New Mexico. I fell in love with it. Yeah. But I also, I researched just through books what was going on, what festivals and gatherings, and I found out about the Rites of Spring festival that's in Western Massachusetts and had been going for years, for decades, even at that point. And I actually wrote, back in the day when you sent something by the post, and sent a little press kit and said, I'd really love to perform at your festival. And lo and behold, they wrote back. And so that was my first pagan festival. And I got to say, America back then and even now is just ahead of the game in terms of pagan festivals, just amazing. And to see this group of hundreds of people on beautiful land doing sacred ceremony together, creating community, well organized, respectful, joyful. It was game changing for me. I loved it. Loved it. And I had Reuben was 8 and he turned 9 on that trip. And so he was with me, and we just, we were just wide-eyed adventurers. And so since then, I came back to the States. Most years it was twice every year, and the word began to spread, and people began to discover what I had to offer. And then the invitations started rolling in, and they still are, which I'm very grateful for. And then I began expanding, to Europe, and the Australian scene became a little stronger. There's some good festivals now. And yeah, so I guess from that point on, from 2001, my life was kind of split between Australia and the States. And it wasn't long before the balance kind of turned, where it was just more sensible for me to be living here with a lot more going on here in the pagan world than there is in Australia. Though like I say, Australian, that scene is really picking up now, so which is exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. So with the pandemic still, well, it's actually ending here in the States, or should be ending soon. Are things gonna pick up? Your live in person concerts gonna pick up?
Yeah, for sure. I actually have my first live gig in America coming up in August at the Cleveland Pagan Pride Day.
Yay.
And the final weekend in August. So that's going to be interesting, getting on an airplane again. And I was in Australia earlier in the year. I had to go back because my dad was sick, and then he subsequently died, and I was there to help nurse him across the threshold, and which was beautiful and sad. But I then stayed on an extra few months and did lots of shows in Australia, because Australia still has very closed borders and very few cases of COVID, and so I was able to do a lot of live shows.
Oh, that's good.
Which was, it was really good. But I did learn a lot from sitting still and being at home during the pandemic. And prior to that, I would be on the road for at least 6 months of the year. And
wow.
I know, and it was exhausting, and I love it. I love travel. I've got a Gemini moon. I can't help myself. I'm on the way home. I'll be complaining that, this is so exhausting, and I can't wait to be in my own bed. And the moment I get home, I just plan the next tour. I did actually learn that I like doing online stuff. I like doing online concerts, and thankfully, I already had my Patreon page well established for at least a year before the pandemic hit. And basically my attention just turned pretty much 100% to the pandemic, to Patreon after the pandemic. And I was able to, I'd already been doing concerts every single full moon on my Patreon page. So I just continued doing that. And I'm still doing that now.
I've actually seen your videos on YouTube, and
cool.
Yeah, so I subscribe to your channel now because I look forward to those, and I really love it when you sing, obviously, and pull out your black guitar and beautiful witchy songs, and kind of puts me in the mood for myself to do a ritual as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, I really honor you for doing those, and wanted to tell people to take a look at those.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've got lots of film clips and stuff up on YouTube, and the basically the full moon concerts that I release on YouTube are usually a year ago, and the current ones are on my Patreon page. So I just and so if you go to my Patreon page, which is just, do you know about Patreon? It's just, I think, saved so many of us musicians last year.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and so I do, like, on my YouTube channel every month now, since I got back from Australia a few months ago, I do a little 10-minute talk about the full moon, but the actual concert is up on my Patreon page, and you can just join my Patreon page for like $2 a month. But then I also have, like you said, you can go to YouTube, and for free you can see all my past full moon magic concerts from a year ago, and so there's loads up there. And
I'm intrigued. I was looking at some of your early recordings, Hecate. There's a lot of dark moon goddesses, and and I'm really intrigued, I'm intrigued to know if you align with any specific goddesses, or work with any specific goddesses, or have any favorite.
Yeah, I do. I do love Hecate, and I do love. I guess I'm very aligned with the Greek pantheon. I don't know why that just happened, and I've always loved Artemis as well. And
Yeah.
my last album is a full retelling of the myth of Persephone and Demeter, and
Right.
Persephone's
Yeah.
descent into the underworld. And I really do. On that album, I sing in the voices of Persephone, Demeter, and Hecate. And Hecate's parts I sing in Greek, which I've been learning since I wrote that album. And
Mm-hmm.
so I very much align with those goddesses, but also I have a very strong affinity with Hermes or Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
and um,
Yeah.
and also I just nature, just Mother Earth,
Yeah.
just the cosmos is my
Yeah.
main god, you know,
Yeah.
and all the miraculousness of this incredible thing called life. And yeah, but mostly I guess if I'm kind of working with a particular deity, it's often more often than not Hecate, Hermes, Artemis, Persephone, I'd say.
Yeah.
Top four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. They all kind of have a descent, but they're also seers of
Mm-hmm.
pathways.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of threshold
Mhm.
energy too, or especially Hecate and Hermes, of course. What
Yeah.
about you? Do you align with particular
Well,
deities?
Bridget, my
Yes, of
namesake,
course.
of course, and the Morrigan,
Mm-hmm.
two of my go-to goddesses. But lately, I've been just really aligning with air, the element of air.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, because I moved from Seattle, which was all about, it's very earthy and water and
Mm,
surrounded by water and the green, the trees and the rain.
yeah.
And I'm on a journey. I'm opening my wings, and I feel like there's a lot of air energy here in Las Vegas and the
Well, those
Southwest.
epic skies. I mean, that's the gift of the Southwest. You know, it's like earth and sky, isn't it? Just so
Yeah.
obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm feeling like a butterfly. I'm feeling like a bird, and I just I feel the breeze underneath my wings, so to speak,
Mm,
a lot.
yeah.
Um,
That's powerful.
it is very powerful. And it's very different from the elements that I was very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I work with the moon goddess quite a bit and the whole lunar ritual.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, change is good.
Uh-huh. It really is. Yeah. And I guess that's the thing for me too, is like just Our Lady Moon is my beloved. Like I just see her as goddess in all her many guises and
Yeah,
just love her for her constancy and her change. And, you know, you'll see weaving through so many of my albums are songs to the moon or songs that reference the moon. I just love her.
yeah. And I think one of my favorite albums of yours was you were collaborating with Gary Standler, is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
My fairy album.
yes.
Yes.
To me, that is the most haunting. I mean, I love all your work that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Still have much to listen to, but for me, that it was such a haunting album, and I just loved it. I listened to it over and over again.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, wow, that, you know, again, that was kind of early days of my travels to America. And I was at a festival. It was actually in the hills behind Santa Cruz.
Oh,
And
really? Oh, wow.
yeah, it was, yeah, it was like a fire circle kind of ritual, fire dance, it might have been called.
Uh-huh.
And I was performing there, and Gary heard me sing, and he already had a couple of albums out where he wrote songs about fairies, and then he collaborated with a female singer, and so
Hmm.
he heard me sing and thought, oh, that might be my next person for my next album, and so asked me if I was interested, and you know, if I was interested in doing this album about fairies. And if you had seen me at that time, you know, I looked very goth. I didn't
Yeah.
really look like a fairy-ish person, but I actually have always been incredibly connected to the fae.
Right.
And so I kind of said to him, yeah, I'm up for that as long as it's like dark fairy of the forest. He's like, oh, okay, well, we can give that a try, you know. And it ended up sort of being his darkest album and my sort of lightest.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. I listened to it
Oh,
over and
thank you.
over. One Yule, maybe it was like 3 years ago, and
Yeah.
I was kind of going through a little bit of a transition, a little lost, I guess, at that time. But for some reason,
Yeah.
I just kept listening over, and it was at Yule, and I just listened to it over and over, and it was just very soothing. So
Oh,
I
thank
wanted
you.
to let
That's
you
really
know
sweet.
that. It really touched my spirit. So, and I know
Oh, thank you.
yes, your music really touches the spirits of people all over the world. And so I really honor you for that, for what you
Thank
do.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I just try to be very honest in my music. Like I don't try to put on any airs, or I just try to be as raw and emotionally honest as I possibly can be,
yeah.
and sing about the things that genuinely matter to me, you know, which
Right.
is loving nature, magic, the journey of the human heart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a spiritual, you're definitely on a spiritual, obviously a path, but your music and your spirituality aligns so closely. It's powerful. So,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, they're
yeah,
inseparable. It's
exactly.
like, you know, which one affects the other? You know, how does it start? It's like, well, they're just inseparable. My music is my spirituality, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, when you do a ritual, um,
Yeah.
is there quite a bit of music in your ritual, or do you kind of weave that into your ritual, or do you kind of separate it? Or
When I'm by myself and I'm doing just solitary ritual,
uh-huh.
you know, maybe I'm, you know, in the forest, I will usually start by singing myself into center and just improvise some singing and just, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just slow myself down and be present. And yeah, it, in that way, sure, there's music. But a lot of the time, I mean, my rituals, my solitary rituals have become simpler and simpler over time. Often it's just that.
Yeah.
Often it's just being, you know, wherever I am, singing myself into a place of center,
Mm-hmm.
calling in the elements, sometimes through song, sometimes through words, sometimes through thought. And, um, and yeah, I use a lot of spoken word in ritual, improvised,
Mm-hmm.
and often I'll do that like talking to myself or to nature, or uh, yeah. But my solo rituals are very simple. That these days, I never use a script. I just connect in with nature, focus, use a lot of visualization, and at any point where I feel like I'm wandering, like I'm lost my focus, singing will bring me back into that. Not
Yeah.
so much songs, but just improvised kind of toning and that kind of thing. And when I do public rituals at festivals and gatherings, I often I'll begin with like my circle casting song, which is on my Wolf Sky album, um, and often include, maybe I'm smudging or something like that, and I'll improvise some singing while I'm doing that, and maybe include a song or two um,
Mm-hmm.
to sing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of music, but it's not necessarily songs. It's often just free form or even drumming too. Yeah,
Sure. Call in the spirits.
yeah, yeah,
And center and ground and center. Yeah.
exactly.
I just I have a horsehair or a horse hide, excuse me, drum
Yeah,
that I use for journeying, and I wouldn't call myself a musician, but it does center me, and it also puts me in trance. And when I use it in circle with my Circle of Luna rituals, just a heartbeat, even just the sound of a
exactly.
heartbeat will put you in a trance, and so it's a magical tool for sure.
It really is. And I think it's important to remember that you don't need to be technically a musician to utilize music in rituals. Just
That's right.
toning and humming or making up your own little songs or drumming or playing someone else's music and dancing around, you know, or singing along. It's yeah, it's there for all of us to utilize. It's powerful.
Yeah. So I would say that, and I'm sure other people have said this to you before, that your concerts are a ritual in a
Yeah,
sense.
very much so. Very consciously. Like when I now, whether I'm with a band or whether I do whether I'm doing a solo concert or whether it's my monthly concerts on Patreon, I always begin by getting ourselves centered. And, at when I do live shows, I still set up an altar, I burn some incense, and I welcome the elements and cast circle, and then I get on with the business of the concert. And at the end, um, always, thank the elements and open circle, because I think that live music, especially, and whether that's on the internet or whether you're in the same room, it's still the same deal. You're actually raising energy, and it's not just coming from me; it's also coming from the audience. And I can feel what I discovered during that. You were asking earlier about how the pandemic affected me. What I discovered is that I can, when I'm singing, doing a concert, pre-recording it, singing into my phone, essentially,
Uh-huh.
I really feel the energy of connection with my audience, and it's palpable. And I think that collectively we are in ritual. That's music was always in Indigenous cultures. Music and ritual are inseparable, and it's the same for me. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we're kind of running out of time here, but I wanted to ask one last thing. Do you have any links that you'd like to share with my listeners?
Well, you've already mentioned YouTube, and it's always worth checking that out because I've got loads of film clips, a couple of film clips that were filmed in Greece and some in New Mexico for my latest Persephone album. So just do a
Yeah.
search for or find my channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And every month I do a little video for the dark moon and the full moon and a bit of info.
Yay.
But head to my website, wendyrule.com, and you'll find all my links through to all of my music. It will take you through to Bandcamp, and you can buy CDs, my Persephone double vinyl, or download things.
Okay.
But really, what I love to plug the most is my Patreon page, because I think that's where it's all happening for me at the moment. That's where every month I do my concert, and there's a beautiful community really building there now, and you can join for just $2 a month, so it's really affordable, and it helps keep me afloat and helps keep allowing me to make music and share it. And it's also just really vibrant. Like, you're right there. It's every single month there's a concert themed around the astrological signs. So the next one coming up will be Aquarius full moon. So that will be fun. Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Wendy. I learned so much about your background, your history, your spirituality, and I know my listeners do appreciate and love what you do out there as a goddess, a present day goddess. So I'm really,
Thank you.
it's been thrilling and exciting to speak with you today. And blessed be.
Thank you. Blessed be. And it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you too and getting to know you a little. Thanks so much for inviting me onto your show.
You're welcome. And may you walk with the goddess.
Thank you. And you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.